I've created a cool workspace add-on that lets you bring in your ClickUp tasks, users, and time entries from ClickUp to Google Sheets. And on top of that, it lets you create and edit tasks in Google Sheets and bring that back to ClickUp. Now, I've been working on this almost for the past year, and I had zero experience coding, but obviously with the help of AI and because I knew of the ClickUp API, I was able to build this. It's available on the Google Workspace Marketplace, and there's a link down the description. Because this tool is complete, I want to give you a full final tour of ClickUp to Sheets. If you're ready for this full tour of ClickUp to Sheets, let's get started. And let's start by getting into Google Sheets. You can install ClickUp to Sheets straight from the link down below, or get into Google Sheets, and in the very bottom right here, you're going to see a side panel. You're going to click in the bottom right of your spreadsheet and then click plus here. You're going to add a new add-on, and this is available on the Google Workspace Marketplace. We're going to search for ClickUp, and you should see as one of the first results, ClickUp to Sheets. You'll recognize it with this little icon, and you're going to click install. Now it's going to prompt you to connect your Google account. I'm going to connect mine and then click continue and allow a bunch of authorizations that I need for the add-on to work. Once you've installed the add-on, you should be prompted with this screen. ClickUp to Sheets has been installed. You're going to click next and then done, and you should be fine. What you can do now is refresh your spreadsheet, and you should see on that sidebar on the right, ClickUp to Sheets. Congratulations, your install is done. Now let's click the add-on icon, and when we've clicked, you should see this sheet appear. It's a quick start guide, and it's just to get you started with understanding how the add-on works, and it's got a bunch of videos that I'll just improve over time to explain you every single step, like creating syncs, bringing in time entries, bringing in users, and you're gonna have a bunch of explainers right here. Once you've gone with reading through the sheet, you can just acknowledge the terms and FAQ, and then you're going to connect your ClickUp account. I'm going to click connect, and it should prompt me with a pop-up displaying me every single workspace I have connected to my ClickUp account. Now I've blurred some of those because those are client workspaces, but I'm going to connect the workspaces that one demo use. I'm going to connect at least this one. I'm going to leave some of the others connected. That's fine. This is the workspace I'm working in ClickUp to show you ClickUp to Sheets. Once your connection is successful, you should be prompted with a screen like this one, and you're going to see a video of me, which is actually probably this one, showing you how ClickUp to Sheets works and just giving you a tour. Don't worry if it shows you either a window or a pop-up or a tab. It depends on your browser, but basically when you leave that out and you're back, you should see your ClickUp workspaces are now connected. Once you've gone through the quick start guide, you can sync your first list. And to do so, we're going to click sync list here on the add-on. And just to make sure we're in the right context, we're going to get to ClickUp and understand what we have to bring in. We are in the Agent Sys workspace, People Demo space, Hiring folder, and Talents list in ClickUp. We basically have to call out this list from here. It's as simple as picking the right workspace, then picking your space, and then we're going to get into the folder, and we should be done by just bringing in the right list. We have to bring in the talents list. There we go. And then you'll have to pick your sync options. I'm going to explain you how this works. The first one we're going to turn on is two-way sync. Two-way sync lets you create and edit ClickUp tasks from Google Sheets. You're going to be able to create in bulk, if you wanted to, a bunch of tasks into your spreadsheet and send them back to ClickUp. That was probably one of the most wanted feature, and I'm excited to show it to you. It's only part of the business plan though, because I leave it to more powered users. Now, once we've picked that on, we can pick sync every day. And this would synchronize your ClickUp list every day, actually 4 times a day, so that every change that you make in ClickUp is reflected into Google Sheets. And if you combine it with two-way sync, every change that you've made in Google Sheets will be first sent back to ClickUp. You have to be careful about that and make sure that you're aware of how these two work together. Next, we're going to enable Create Report, and it's going to create a second sheet where we have a bunch of interesting KPIs, and then we're going to enable Color Fields. Coloring fields is going to let us have the exact same colors for our dropdowns and our statuses into our spreadsheet, and I'm going to show you how that looks. And then we're going to bring in a bunch of data from our tasks. We're going to include descriptions, custom fields, closed tasks, and subtasks. I'm going to bring in every single thing so that I can show you how everything looks like in your spreadsheet. But before you start your first sync, make sure you're aware of how two-way sync works, because it's limited to 200 changes at once. And the sheet is actually going to warn you of how many changes you can do, and be also sure to check out the sync limits. There are actually 10,000 tasks for list syncs, so it's already quite a lot of data, and then 3,000 tasks for view syncs. Make sure you're aware of the two-way sync warning and the sync limits before you get started the first time. Now, without further ado, let's start our first sync. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new sheet into our spreadsheet, as you can see here, and it's got the list name in the bottom, and it has a bunch of different columns. We have the urgency, we have the phase, the score, the department, and these are custom fields that were brought in from ClickUp. Once it's done, it tells you the sync has started successfully. And just to check out the status, you can go back to the home page. The sync takes about a minute or 2 minutes, so you can refresh the status after a minute or two, but you will see your task data showing up here anyway. While it's syncing, I'm gonna get back to ClickUp and just show you what should be brought in. We should have a bunch of people here with different statuses, their email. I actually included one onboarding subtask just to show you that subtasks are included as well. And all those custom fields should be brought back and colored according to their values in the spreadsheet. Now let's get back to our spreadsheet. I'm back to ClickUp to Sheets. And as you can see, everything has been brought in. The names here, you have a link to quick access the task if you wanted to. Then you have the description because we included it. You can see the parent ID of the task and the parent name of the task showing up here. You can see, for example, that this subtask, its parent task is Fatima Al Hassan. And if you get back to ClickUp here, you can see that this is a subtask of that person as well. Now we have the ability to see tags as well. We don't have any in these tasks, but if I were to add a new tag on some of those tasks, it should be brought back to ClickUp to Sheets on the next sync. Then we can see the statuses, and that's quite interesting because we have the status with their colors. And if we were to make a change, which we will do later, it will reflect next into Google Sheets because it's just a simple drop-down picker. Then you can see the assignee on the task. We don't have any, but same principle. If I were to open up one of those tasks and put an assignee, this is the data that will show up in the sheet in that column. We have the start dates, due dates of tasks, priorities, estimates, date created. Basically, this is all ClickUp rows. And as you can see, it's much more user-friendly than a ClickUp export. I don't know if you've seen how a ClickUp native export looks like, but you have to bring in the CSV into Excel or into Google Sheets, make it look nice with columns. And even there, you will have to do a lot of changes and manipulations to be able to pull out data. One big difference, for example, is that in this export, you would see in a subtask, what's the parent task name, which you cannot see in a ClickUp export. You'll just get the parent ID, which from a user perspective is not really handy or interesting. Just as a quick tip, you can also hide your description column, which will make your rows much smaller and make the data much more readable. If you don't really need the description, and that's why I made it an option, just disable it and you will not see it and the data will look much smoother like it is right now on my screen. Now we've seen how task data looks like, but if we go into Talents dashboard, this is a second sheet that tells you how many tasks you have, how much time you spend on those tasks, if you had lingering tasks, the average task age, and a bunch of interesting data and KPIs about your project progress. And every time you make a change, so if you were to synchronize your tasks manually another time, or if you were to just enable two-way sync, you will see this data being refreshed in your sheet. Just to summarize, we have brought in all our tasks from ClickUp, we have created the dashboard, and maybe we want to create and edit those tasks from our spreadsheet. I'm going to show you how two-way sync works. Now we're going to go into the settings of our list sync here on the sidebar and make sure that two-way sync is enabled, which it is because we've just done it recently. And now we're going to create and edit some tasks. What if I were to create a new task and call it Brad Pitt? And I'll create a second one, call it Angelina Jolie. Okay. These are two new people that are going to be brought into our talent pool, and we can add some data in them. We could say, for example, that they are both in a candidate status, maybe, that their start date is 1st of May, and they'd say like 22nd, that they are in a high priority maybe, and just add some email, brad@gmail.com, and this one is going to be angelina@gmail.com. I've added some emails. I've changed a bunch of custom fields, as you can see here. I can even give them a score. Let's both give them a 5, and I can pick their department. They're both going to work in finance. Let's put this one in R&D just to show there's a difference. We have pretty much edited all the fields, and it tells you here I have 198 updates available. So I can update some other of those people. What I'm going to do maybe is change the onboarding subtask not to this person, but maybe to this person. To do so, you'll have to get the task ID, which is to find in ClickUp. You're going to see where you want to bring the subtask. Maybe I want to bring it under this person. It's the one that finishes with Z9. The inclusion of subtask, I have to say, is not the best user experience, but that's unfortunately how ClickUp works. And if you have a lot of tasks, it is hard to pick from a list like this one. But ClickUp forces you to pick a parent ID from an API perspective. This is how we need to work. Onboarding will be brought in as a subtask into a different task, and then maybe you can change another person. Maybe John Joe is actually called John Joe Senior, okay? And instead of rejected, let's put him back as a candidate. And then let's put his start date on the 24th and due date on the 31st, and I'll put him as low priority. I'm basically making a bunch of changes. I can also change custom field here. I can change his department. So every single change I'm going to make here is going to be reflected into ClickUp. And it tells you this here, actually. It tells you we'll update task details. We'll update task details and custom fields. So if I were to make it larger, we'll create a new task. So you can see what's going to happen in ClickUp from this update info column. Once you're happy and done with those changes, you can click Sync Tasks again. And that will actually keep only the rows that are going to be updated in ClickUp. It shows you, it highlights you what's going to change. I recommend you in any case to test this feature on a test list first before you make any change in your production data, because this is quite sensitive indeed. So now this sheet has been cleaned, and that means the sync is working out. And once we see the data back here, it's a good sign that our sync has been done. So our data is now back to Google Sheets. And as you can see, we have two new tasks. We have a bunch of custom fields updated, the review status, the score, the department, same. We have an edit of John Senior. So every change we've made has been reflected into ClickUp. I'm going to show you that in ClickUp. We have our list and we have our two new tasks with the right scores. If we open them up, we have the task name, the start dates, due dates, and every change we made into our spreadsheet has been reflected. Same thing from bringing the subtask to a different person, and every single change we would do would reflect here. Now, obviously, this is not intended for creating 10,000 tasks at once because the tool doesn't support it. This is due to ClickUp limitations. And if you want to do a massive bulk import, you will have to go for the regular ClickUp import feature. So if you want to let some external stakeholders make some changes, update some statuses, for example, change some dates, add some new dates, and you don't want to give them access to ClickUp, all you have to do is create a sync for the first time, enable to async, enable sync every day, and then you just can give them access to the spreadsheet, and every change they make here will be reflected every single day back to ClickUp. This is a great tool if you have external stakeholders, whether it's clients, managers that don't want to have access to ClickUp and still want to make some changes to your task data. Some other use case could be importing a small amount of tasks. Some other could be just wanting to interact with everything from a spreadsheet and just making some changes in bulk. Maybe you just want to update everyone to HR. You just drag and drop that. That's much smoother and faster than doing it in ClickUp. And then click Sync Tasks, and this would reflect back to ClickUp. And now let's move on to syncing views. We have a view here in the people demo space. And as you can see, it's got tasks from the hiring folder, from the employee directory, and it's got a filter here. It's filtered on a certain amount of states, and I could combine it with another filter, but the idea is that every single filter here will serve as a filter in the spreadsheet. If you want to bring a select amount of tasks, all you can do is bring in a view instead of a whole list. And the good thing with views is that they can be at any level. So now I'm going to aggregate tasks from different lists into my spreadsheet. And let's see how this looks. I'm going to click Sync View. And from there, I'm going to pick the right context. This is in a space because back in ClickUp, we're in the people demo space. Just for context, I'm going to pick the agency's workspace and then the people demo space. Here we go. And now I'm going to pick the list view to sync and enable a bunch of features. I'm going to enable two-way sync every day, create reports, color fields, and include custom fields. Just going to enable everything just to show you again how everything works. It's going to be the same principle as a list pretty much. You're going to have your sheet created. You're going to have your columns populated. It's going to bring in the custom fields like urgency that we have here. By the way, you have to be careful because not every custom field is at every level. Some of the custom fields that were in the talents list are not going to be at space level, for example. That's why you're not going to see them in your spreadsheet. As you can see, it's created everything. It's highlighted the colors, which, by the way, I haven't mentioned, but serve as indicating you which columns are editable, because not every single column is editable. And if you're using two-way sync, you have to make sure you only make changes to those purple columns. Let's wait for a minute until the data comes in, and you're going to see it's pretty much the same. You're going to be able to create some new tasks, make some changes, and this should reflect in ClickUp. One difference with the list is that if you make changes here on the two-way sync, you can only edit tasks. You cannot create new ones. And that's simply because it would be hard to indicate in which list this new task has to go. If you want to create a new task, you have to do a list sync, not a view sync. And while I was saying that, it was syncing everything. And as you can see, everything has been populated. The priorities have been updated. And all this data from ClickUp has been brought in. I can refresh the status, and we're just going to test out two-way sync. I am going to just update some priorities, put some priorities to low maybe for every single task in the employee directory. And then what I'm going to do is just change the urgency. I'm going to put all the tasks to urgent. Let's just duplicate this, update everything to urgent. Here we go. Everything's been updated to urgent. We have changed the priorities, and this is just to show you that two-way sync works on views as well. While we're at it, before I go into syncing, we have a dashboard for our views as well. So you can see the same KPIs appearing, and same principle. I'm going to click sync task, and we're going to see how it looks like. So the interesting thing here is it knows in which context, in which list the edits are. So you will be able to see that back in ClickUp in the right list. Now, creating new tasks from a view, as I said, is a little bit trickier. So I wanted to keep it simple and keep the experience simple. You'll only be able to create tasks from list syncs. But that's totally fine. You can use views just for edits and use lists for creations. Use every single sync type as it's intended. And if I were to get back here, it is updating the urgency as well and putting it as urgent. So priority and urgency has updated. So back in Google Sheets, our sync are brought in, data has changed, and two-way sync works for views as well. Now we're done with task sync. Let's move on to admin tools. There's two tools you can use. First one is letting you bring time tracked. You're going to be able to see all your time entries from your ClickUp workspace. If you click this little stopwatch icon, you're going to be able to pick which time entries you want to bring in, on which start date, due date, which workspace. Just as a reminder, time entries, if we get into the ClickUp UI here, they are available in the timesheet. These are the time entries. As you can see, we have a bunch here, and this is basically time that my users have logged on their project. They've said, I've worked 3 hours on this, 4 hours on that, and they can do this from a task level. If you're actually interested about an actual demo of time entries in ClickUp, there's a dedicated video about that in my YouTube channel. But this is not what to focus on. if you're using this feature, you must be aware of what time entries are first. Back to ClickUp to Sheets, I'm gonna pick time entries for this whole workspace actually. And it's a little bit the same as bringing in lists. You're just gonna have to pick your workspace, pick the date at which you wanna bring your time entries, which is a little bit different from lists. I'm gonna bring everything from the 1st of December and then create a report and create drip down tables. I'm gonna disable sync billable time only because most of my time is not billable and I want you to see a bunch of data. I'm gonna click export time tracked. Now it's created a new sheet here and it's prepared for my time entries. There's gonna be a bunch of data, a bunch of time entries coming in here. And here we go, it's been brought in. We have all the task names, the users, the start time, end time, how long it's lasted, the amount of hours. We can see the billable tags, we can see the space it's been built in. And if we go into the different dashboards, we have a pivot table of who has spent time on what each month. It's pretty handy to see, okay, this person has been working maybe 5 hours on this project, 68 hours on this project in February, 7 hours on this one. Obviously, this is dummy data. This is not very relatable. I'm just using this as a demo space, but you'll be able to see, for example, all your client lists as projects and what time has been spent on by whom over each month. And you can just drill down through this table as you have assignees in your ClickUp tasks. You can see that overall I spent 152 hours from December. If we get here, they have a bunch more interesting time tracking tables that we can actually go through like that way, or just read through in a more user-friendly manner with charts, because you're going to be able to see the amount of time spent overall, the total billable hours, how much time a session is lasting on average. So if a user clocks in time on average 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then you could see each week of the period that you've picked, how much time has been logged. If you hover over each time chart, you can see that week 68 hours, that week 17 hours, 6 hours. This is actually quite uneven, and this could indicate a problem in terms of time tracking practices in ClickUp. Next up, you could see the time spent per space. You could see if this person has been working on this space, that space, and you can actually see how it's been split out by list. This is quite interesting as well, because if you have time entries on a single space, for example, you could pick it from the time export settings and actually bring in time entries only for a space and have this data drilled down by list in a chart. Next up, we can see the time spent per list, the top 10 tasks we've been spending time on, the active hours per user. So as you can see, there's a user clocking in time way more than others, might indicate you a problem as well, the billable hours and the work patterns. This is it for time entries exports. That's already a really, really interesting feature, I feel. I already have a few agencies super interested in using it day to day and actually reporting that data back to their management about how much time has been spent on each project, or even importing that data into their invoicing or billing tool so that they can easily map those rows with their clients and add in or clocking in time tracked. I want to show you the ability to export ClickUp users. You might think that is not really useful. Why would I want to do that? And the thing is that it could be interesting to see who's been working on your ClickUp account and who could actually be turned from a member to a guest. I'm going to do two use cases here. First off, I'm going to bring in a dummy account as well and create a report. And I'm going to show you how this could look like. And then I'm going to bring an actual client workspace where I'm going to blur out everything. But because they have more users, the data might be more relevant. As you can see here, we have some interesting data. We can see that we have 11 users in our workspace. 63% are actually using the tool. We don't have any inactive users, which is good. We don't have anyone we could turn into guests, which is good, but we do have 4 pending invites. So we should probably send that invite again or delete those users. And then we can see the user distribution by role, who's a guest, who's a member. We can see the active users, the pending users, so the user adoption status. And that already gives us an interesting cue about how our workspace is being used. You could also see when a user joined and who's invited them as well. Quite interesting. But then let's try on an actual larger workspace. Here I have way more users on this client workspace, and you can see that the data is actually interesting. We have 89 users, pretty much everyone's using it, which is great, but there are 6 people that could be turned from members that are paid members into guests. This tells you, okay, these people, they don't have the same email domain, they could be turned to guests. You might not need to pay seats for them because they're freelancers, for example. These are inactive, so you're paying 7 seats for no reason. These people haven't logged in for more than 3 months now. There's already an opportunity to optimize and save up 7 plus 6, so 13 seats from this user's ClickUp account. This is super interesting to kind of audit your ClickUp usage by your team. That's it for this demo of ClickUp to Sheets. I'm sure you can find super interesting use cases for your own operations. Give the tool a try, let me know what you think. And to thank you for watching this video, there's a discount down below. After you've tried ClickUp to Sheets, you can subscribe, use the discount, and until next time, stay productive.